I congratulate you and commend you on your bold initiative to improve the lives of the women.
Hello, it's really good to see you again. This is Women Power Politics, or should I say the Women Power Politics Hour on the Joy News channel. My name is Sweety Aborchie. And you know, when we have a fresh installation, it's another powerful woman who is leading the charge and broadening the conversation around women's participation in governance. My guest today is a fierce voice when it comes to fighting for our environment. She was one of the leading voices in the Stop Galamsey Now, and of course she is the leader or the force behind the eco-conscious citizen. And I know by now you already know who I'm talking about. My guest today on Women Power Politics is Awula Serwah. It is really good to see you.
Thank you so much for having me. It's
my
a real pleasure to be on your program. Thank you.
So, are you just Awula Serwah? I mean, is that a name that you picked up for? There are people like me who have a government name that nobody would get to hear on this program. But Sweety Aborchie is the one I picked because it's easier to remember and it's my personality. Are you just Awula Serwah? There are other names that we don't know.
Yes, but I like to just stick to Awula Serwah. It's a long story,
Okay,
but I use
right.
Awula Serwah
Yeah.
in everything.
Okay.
Yes,
So Awula Serwah, we want to follow you, follow your background, follow your journey before becoming this powerhouse of a woman that you are. How did you come to be? Where were you born?
You flatter me. I'm not sure I'm such a powerhouse. But I was born in Ghana.
Okay.
I was born in Tema.
Tema girl.
Yes, you see, my background, my mom was a nurse, and my father was a teacher. Then he became a diplomat, and he was also a statesman.
Okay.
And yes, so I have a sister and 2 brothers. So
Okay.
that's my background.
Okay.
I was in Ghana. I did my primary education in Ghana. At the age of 5, I went to Switzerland with my parents because my father was then the ambassador there. We stayed there for 5 years. So I speak French because, yes, we went to school in Geneva. We came back to Ghana, went to Achimota. I was there for 7 years. And I'm proud to say,
years?
yes, 7 years.
Oh,
and I'm
the
proud to
O-level.
say, yes, I mean, I did O-levels and
Okay.
A-levels there. And I'm proud to say that I was Kingsley House prefect.
Okay.
You know. And yes, and I went to Legon where I read law. I also read Spanish,
Okay.
but I majored in law and then law school. And then, yes, I began, you know, after, yes, I began to practice. And so that was it.
Okay. Did your father's career as a teacher and a diplomat have any major influences on how your life turned out?
Yes, he was very keen on education. So that's what he was interested in. He would do anything to make sure that you were well educated. And by education, he didn't mean, you know, just reading something and not understanding it. And, you know, people say chew, pour, pass. That was not what he was about. He talked about the real love of education, reading, understanding what you were reading. So there was time when we were on holidays that he'd give you a book to read and you had to come and tell him what you had read, what it was about, and so on and so forth. And as you can see, I love the garden, open spaces. My mom loved the garden. So we grew a love of the environment. So I would say that my passion is the environment.
Okay.
And I would always say that as Ghanaians, you know, we're very religious. But when we look at it, God put us in the Garden of Eden. And he asked us to take care of it. And so many of us don't care about environment. And we don't understand that, you know, you commune with nature. And then you learn so much about God and about so many things when you are, you know, you look at the environment, you see how things begin to grow from a little seed. So some of the parables, you know, being in the garden, it sort of gives you a better outlook. So I'm saying that if you say you're a Christian, then one of the mandates we have is to take care of our environment. It's not a choice. It's a command.
I think we learn better when we hear people's personal experiences or personal relationship with these entities. So, for example, you and your love and passion for the environment and the garden. Exactly what does it mean to you as an individual?
You see, I see more about the beauty of creation. I mean, when you talk about God, I mean, being a creator, look at the butterfly going there. And then you look at, you know, you see the wonder. They say the whole of creation tells about the wonder of God. You look at the colors, you look at the plants, you look at the trees, and you say that it took a wonderful God to create this, you know. And God in his wisdom did not put us in the concrete jungle. He puts us in the Garden of Eden. When you read the description, the beauty of it all. And I think you find out that when you're in an open space, you clear your mind, you recharge your batteries.
You even breathe better.
You breathe better because of the oxygen. And I also say that it's serene environment. I think we're far too noisy. You know, remember Desiderata, go plastically into the world. I mean, this noise and noise and noise, it stops you from thinking. So maybe that's why we pass all sorts of bad laws, because we're not thinking. But when you go into a quiet environment, especially a garden, and then you begin to just relax, even health-wise. You know, there are some doctors who don't believe in so many, medicine and things. They would say that go and sit in the garden, just relax, take in the pure oxygen, and then you find out that you begin to feel better. Because sometimes the hustle and bustle of everyday life, it doesn't help us very much.
Have you always been this vocal about things? When did you find your voice?
I don't know, but I think my father always encouraged us to defend your position and to hold your ground. You know, as children, maybe you come and say, oh, Daddy, I want this. And you have to say, why do you want it? And it's not enough to say, because my friends had it. That's the worst thing you can say, because your friends had it, because that would not impress him. You have to give him a reason why you thought it was important. So he taught us to be sensitive about what was around us. And I have to say that he went to Achimota as well. He was very proud of Achimota. He always said, apart from his family background, Achimota made him. You know, the principles of taking water to a thirsty land, thinking about others first. So he was somebody who would encourage you to not just think about yourself, but to think about others, and also to be able to articulate your views. And I think he taught us that when something was wrong, you didn't just sit there moaning about it. And that reminds me of one of my role models, apart from my mother. There's somebody called Shirley Chisholm. She was the first African-American woman to run for Congress. And she said that you don't make progress by sitting on the sidelines, whimpering and complaining. You make progress by implementing ideas. So it's a question of seeing that something is wrong. Yes, you need to take note of it, but you don't just sit there, oh, can you see this is this? You try to do something about it. So that's how we're brought up. You see something wrong, do something about it. So you've always
had a voice, because that was the relationship you had with your dad.
Yes,
and somehow it just became normal to you.
Yeah, I think the family, it was more about making a difference, you know. So when you come home, maybe talk about things going on. And my mom was the same. I mean, she was an activist. She trained in the UK, and she was part of the Gold Coast Students' Union. You know, so she was also an activist in her time. When she came back to, she was a nurse, she came back to Ghana, community health. And also she used to teach the medical students about preventative medicine. So, you know, preventative medicine lets you know that we should be aware of ensuring that certain things don't happen, prevention. And she was the real force in my reading law, because I was not particularly interested in law. There were other things I wanted to do, maybe languages. Because of having been to Switzerland, I spoke French fluently. And you know, I studied Spanish as well. But of course, because I finished with just law, the Spanish was only for 2 years. But she wanted me to read law. And Justice Niama Olenu was a relative. We used to visit him very often. So he talked to me into doing law, you know, just do the law, read law. After you are called to the bar, if you don't want to practice law, you don't have to, but at least it's a good background. And I thank my mom and I thank him as well. Yes.
So it sounds like you had exposure to the Western world, where being vocal is encouraged. Here, from this deeply patriarchal system that we come from, I think it's getting better, but it's not completely gone. Young people, especially women, aren't encouraged to speak up. You see something wrong and you speak up, they're asking, what place, what position are you in society for you to be questioning the way we are doing things? Did you ever experience that in Ghana and in your foreign travels and adventures?
You know, it's very interesting. I would say that talking about women, for example, we have Awula Serwah. So we knew, she said if the men wouldn't do anything, she would. So you saw a woman who was very vocal, so she can be a role model. And if you talk about pre-independence time, my dad used to mention Dede Ashikinsha. She was one of the women who supported Kwame Nkrumah.
Is
flour. So she used to, yes, you know, you've done well. She used to import flour. She had a flour business. So she used the proceeds to support the independence movement. I know she used to finance, you know, first president, Kwame Nkrumah. So she was vocal and she did what she could. So I think that in Ghana, we have examples like, as I said, Awula Serwah, who when the men were not being bold, she took the initiative. And then we realized that, you know, in the UK, when I was there, I had an organization where we're trying to raise aspirations of young people, especially, you know, there's the racism going on. And I mean, Ghana, you come, you see Africans in high positions. You know, sometimes when you are in some parts of the UK, you don't see that so much. So then you don't have the aspiration. But in Ghana, you have it. And then they had a problem with single mothers. But in Ghana, you have a lot of single mothers who are very strong. They have taken care of their household and they've done so much. So I think that the Ghanaian women are very strong. And I always say that you can be strong in different places. You don't always have to go into politics. But women have a unique advantage. You are the ones who bring up the children. You can influence so much. I remember reading a book by a very educated lady. I think she was a psychiatrist. And part of when her children were very young, she chose to remain at home, you know, work from home and look after the children. So she was saying that sometimes, you know, you go out, you know, cocktail parties and people will say, what do you do? And then she intentionally say that, oh, I'm a housewife. And then she see sort of the disappointed looks. But she was sort of trying to say that being at home looking after the children is one of the most important jobs. Yeah. Because when you don't bring up the children well, you inflict them on the rest of society.
Okay. But I mean, I just want to find out if the foreign exposure did anything advantageous that the regular Ghanaian woman who hasn't had that exposure would not have. Do you think that it does anything?
I think everywhere you go will give you a different perspective, you know. But I do think that even those who have been outside, there's a lot they can learn from very strong Ghanaian women here. Look at your Makola women. You know, you find some of them who are illiterate, but when it came to finance, to calculations, I mean, they were better than some people who these days need a calculator for everything. Their mental marks was very good. So yes, going outside gives you exposure. But at the same time, coming back here, I realized that there are so many unsung Ghanaian women heroes. There's so many of them who've played their parts and continue to do so.
Please, let's stay here for a while because I want to know if you're impressed with our journey or our quest to achieve gender equality by 2030, some say, but forget about the targets, the year. Do you think we're doing well? Do you think women are getting the same opportunities, equal treatment as the men? I know there's affirmative action, I know we say there's parity in our education system, but from your own experiences, how are we faring?
Well, I mean, I would say that, you see, when it comes to gender balance and things, I mean, I will sort of move from a lot of things. I mean, my sister is a strong gender person. She's in the UK. She was a counsellor for over 12 years. She now works at Tower Hamlets, and she's sort of one of the advisors to the mayor of Tower Hamlet. But so she's more about gender. I can say me, not so much. What I think is that everybody should reach their full potential wherever it leads you. And yes, you're right. Sometimes women are not encouraged. In some households, it's like, you're a woman, why are you wasting time? You should be having children and so on and so forth. And so that is very, very negative. So what we are doing is excellent. We do need women to know that you can be where you want to be. But I will always say that look at yourself. I mean, I find you a very beautiful person. You are doing extremely well. But it doesn't mean that what you are doing is what everybody can do. Because God has made us all in a unique way. And we should all find our path. So, for example, I mean, to digress a bit, when I was in the UK, we had this lady, member of parliament. She was called Dawn Butler. And I'll take the young people to parliament to raise the aspirations that you could be a parliamentarian if you wanted to. And she was very good. And then she lost her seat. And when she lost her seat, she was in the Labour Party. And I used to vote Labour, but I was not a member of the Labour Party. So when she lost her seat, she later on approached me, you know, because in her ward, she was facing a lot of opposition to be selected. You know, before you can run for elections, you must be selected. And so I did join the Labour Party, and yes, she won her seat. She was selected after a lot of whatever. But I would say that, you know, when she was going through the hustings, I mean, for me, for example, I'm saying that don't vote for her just because she's a woman, because I think that it undermines women that, okay, she should go there because she's a woman. I said no. Not because she's a woman, not because she was from the Caribbean, not because she's an African Caribbean, but vote for her because of her qualities. Because if there was a man who had better qualities, then I would go for the man. Because I'm not somebody who's going to vote for you because you're a woman. And so that when we see women in high places, I want us to know that they are there because they deserve to be there. I wouldn't want to be somewhere and when I've gone, oh, she's there because she was a woman. No. But yes, if there are two people who are equally qualified, equally good, I'll probably go for a woman because in many cases they're underrepresented. So I'm not always a fan of
gender advocacy,
yeah, because sometimes
advocacy,
I would find that sometimes, you know, we have women there who frankly are doing a disservice to women, you know.
In your day-to-day operations, activities, even leading eco-conscious citizens and all that, do you encounter any bias? And this is my last question on gender. Any biases? I've spoken to a lot of women, especially on this show, and they tell you that their strategies, they just don't see it, but it exists. They just decide not to see it. They'll pass some comments like, you should be home with your husband. Why are you here, you know, measuring shoulders or balls with the men? Do you encounter stuff like that, and how do you deal with it?
I mean, I have to say that I didn't really encounter it really with eco-conscious citizens. But yes, I mean, sometimes even at the bar you hear some comments. But you see, you need to be like a duck and let it just decide not to notice certain things. And also take advantage of some of the pluses. I mean, I remember when I started driving, I just decided, I mean, I don't want to change a flat tire. I really don't want to do that. And I never had to do one. Because I remember once, you know, it was late in the evening and there was a flat tire and I said, oh my God, today is today. And nobody was coming around. I opened the boots. Before I could say Jack Robinson, some young man came and said, oh, madam, can I help you? You know, and if I was a man... The universe
was aligning with your
You know,
desires.
if I was a man, nobody would come and do that. So yes, if they think you're the weaker sex and because of that, I'll get those advantages, so be it. I remember sometimes maybe you are late, you go and park in a tight corner. And then when you're getting to the car, maybe one of the lawyers will say, oh, do you want me to help you? Fine. And I say, thank you some women get offended.
Yes.
But I don't get offended. I mean, if, you know, it's going to save me the trouble of having to navigate, so be it. But yes, you do get some negative comments sometimes. And I think that you just have to overlook it and just get on with it.
But there's a problem there though, isn't it? If we overlook it, then...
Well, when I say overlook it, what I mean by overlook it, in the sense that it doesn't demoralize you. You realize that the person has a problem. You don't have the problem, they have a problem. But if you allow it to demoralize you, it sometimes stops you from going where you should go. So I would say that that person obviously is not yet in the 21st century. They're a little backward. So we need to educate them. And I think the best way women can educate men about gender issues is to be the best we can be where we are. I mean, I have seen certain women in very high positions, and I think because they've had to fight to be there, sometimes they can tend to be a little... Let me choose my words carefully.
Brash.
Yes, you know, because they've had to fight every inch of the way. So I think that anytime a woman is shining where she should be, graciously, but at the same time, she doesn't take any nonsense from anybody, but she knows how to do it in a... I mean, I'm not always there because I can be sometimes a little impatient. So I'm learning. I'm a work in progress. But I think that then you really do women a service. Because, for example, you talk about women in high places. I mean, look at, for example, the UK, Margaret Thatcher. I mean, admire her in terms of what she achieved. But as the Prime Minister, not at all. She did a lot of things that people are still suffering to this day.
To this point, when someone calls you Margaret Thatcher, it's not a positive...
Yes, milk snatcher. But I would say that in terms of what she achieved, how hardworking she was, that I would say is admirable. But do I want a woman just because she's a woman? No, because she did a lot of, in my view, harm to the UK.
When we started, I said you were a powerhouse. You didn't agree. You speak with so much passion. I love that.
It's just part of me. People say it, and I always say, really, it's just how I am, just my makeup.
I love it. So when did eco-conscious citizen get born? What happened? What necessitated
Very good question. I mean, before I left here, I had the East Line Environmental Group. I was trying to improve issues of this country. In fact, we planted trees all the way, and I must say that very sadly, a lot of the trees were just cut and then kiosks, as you can see, lining the street. But everywhere you are, you try to make a difference. And when I was in the UK, I think in 2017, there was a WhatsApp circulator about the River Pra, how it used to be blue and it had turned brown. And instead of just circulating, I said, look, I don't like just, let's do something about it. So we got a petition. And we took it to the Ghana High Commission in London. We're very well received. And I think that the Deputy High Commissioner was even telling us about what was happening with the rosewood in the northern region. So we had a very good discussion. and they sent the letter to Ghana. And we actually got a reply. The reply thanking those of us in the diaspora for thinking about Ghana. Illegal mining was something on the top of the agenda, and they were working on it. That's 2017. 2024, things have gone from bad to worse. Then I came back to Ghana, and then the first campaign as eco-conscious citizens was Parks and Gardens. I needed some work done in the gardens, so I had Parks and Gardens, come in. And then they told me about the plan to build a multi-story office building on Parks and Gardens land. I said, look, this is not going to happen.
Not under your watch.
So that's when we started. We formally formed Eco-Conscious Citizens. We got a petition going. I think we had over 3,000 signatures, and we got going, and we even had to go to Ladadi Kotopcom Municipal Assembly because they were trying to do a rezoning, and we managed to put an end to some of these things. And then I went back to the UK, and I found out that they're trying to press again with it. We came back. I think we even had to have something ready in Parliament. But again, that was stopped. There was no multi-story office building. We formed Eco-Conscious Citizens, and then we decided to go on the other issues. Because all we want is a clean, green, healthy, and serene environment.
Many people witnessed the destruction and twiddled their thumbs. You were somewhere outside the four corners of this country, and yet you thought it wise to do something about it. That's commendable. Thank you.
But again, I say it's because of the background. They don't just, and I said, also said, you don't just sit on the sidelines whimpering, you do something about it. So yes, so we tried to do what we could, and so we did Parks and Gardens. And then talking about green spaces, clean green. So clean, obviously, you're talking about sanitation, but green are parks and gardens. So we have asked for an audit of all parks and gardens land. Because in Wa, for instance, we found out that a petrol station was being built on it. We're trying to do something about it. And one of our successes has been in Sandema.
Okay.
And the people there, we didn't start the campaign. Sandema people started the campaign. They had these beautiful mahogany canopy trees. I mean, when you Google them, beautiful. And the powers that be wanted to expand the road. So they thought the best thing they could do was to just fell the canopy trees.
Yeah.
So we said, this is not going to happen. We continued their campaign because we didn't start it. They started it. We joined the campaign. We went to Parliament. We spoke to the 2 MPs from the area. And we also wrote to the Minister for, I think Amwako Atta at the time, Honorable Amwako Atta. And the long and short of it was that we managed to, quote unquote, save the Sandema trees. And what caused me a lot of joy was recently the National Director of Arocha Ghana. He went to
Bosu.
No, Daro is the deputy.
Okay. But
the National Director is Dr. Seth Apiakubi.
Okay.
So he went to do something in Sandema. And he took a video footage, and he actually wrote that when he went to Sandema and saw the canopy trees, then he realized the powerful nature of advocacy, how powerful advocacy can be, that the advocacy saved the Sandema canopy trees. And I was so happy.
You sound like you move without fear. Like, I don't know how many people have access to Parliament and can write petitions and walk into Parliament and get these things done.
That's why I have to thank my mom for making me read law, because I think that also gives you the confidence to do it. And I think also, as I said, at home, you have to articulate, you have to say why you want something. I want something. You have to hold your ground, defend it, and not just say I want it because my friends had it. So I think from that background, and also Achimota was part of the debating club. And funny enough, one of the debates we had was about whether women should, I can't quite remember, it was about gender. And I had to take the position that women, sometimes because of their gender, and of course we're made differently. You can't do it all the things that we're equal but separate. And I remember that at that time, one of my teachers was on maternity leave. So I used that as an example, that if it was a man, he wouldn't be on maternity leave.
Did she like it?
No. Well, I mean, that was an example that came to my mind. But having said that, these days, you have paternity leave. So it's not just the women who go on maternity leave. But just showing that we are equal. I mean, we are equal, but it's just that there are certain things that because of how we are made, we complement each other. So I always say we're not in competition. We complement each other. We're just as good as any other man.
Awula Serwah, we will take a short break, and when we return, we'll get into the real meat of the matter. Galamsey, Parliament, the attitude to LI 2462 and everything in between. You're still watching Women Power Politics on the Journey's channel. Please stay, we'll be right back.
I congratulate you and commend you on your bold initiative to improve the lives of the women.
Well, welcome back. You're still watching Women Power Politics on the Journey's channel with me, Sweety Aborchie, and my guest today is Awula Serwah. So now let's talk about galamsey.
Right.
You were one of the fiercest voices leading the charge to stop galamsey. Now, at the time we were in the lead up to election 2024, there were some promises made. You, together with so many coalitions, the coalition against galamsey, made some, I think at the time, the presidential candidate, what's his name? Now President John Dramani Mahama, and some other people signed a pact committing to taking certain actions. I need to ask, are you impressed with the results that we are seeing so far since they took office?
Well, let me say this. One of the very, very powerful voices was Ken Ashigbe,
Yes.
Media Against Coalition.
Yes.
He's been at the forefront pushing, and so many others also. But what I would say is that in the forefront to the election, there was a lot of activity, and most of the points were declare a state of emergency. You could see what is going on. It's environmental terrorism, and when you have terrorists operating, you have to respond appropriately. So we asked for a state of emergency. We also asked for the repeal of LI 2462. I used to call it a perverse piece of legislation because, it allowed mining in forest reserves, including globally significant biodiversity areas, against all the things we signed, all the treaties we signed. That was just not on. And also another reason why it needs to be revoked is that under the old guidelines, you cannot mine in more than 2% of production forest reserves. LI 2462 removes that. You can virtually have unfettered access to our forest reserve. So we said revoke LI 2462, and then we are also saying that small scale mining, put a pause on it, because you see, with the big ones, they're not that many. If you choose to monitor, you can. We're issuing licenses like confetti when we knew very well that the monitoring was non-existent, and therefore that so many small scale, because you see, mining, if you want to do it properly, it's a very expensive business.
I've listened to government communicate, Phyllis Kwachu Fosu, and so many people in government now who say it isn't a challenge to repeal that LI entirely. But there are some clauses in there that, unbeknownst to them, would be to their advantage as government if they completely repeal the LI. All the explanations or excuses at this point, I can say, that are coming in that you are hearing. Which one is the most ridiculous that you've heard? And I'm asking because I don't know why we can't just say, okay, we as a country, we have decided. It is our country and our land to just stop mining in forest reserves.
You see, I just don't know why they don't want to do it, because none of the reasons stand scrutiny. None of them stand scrutiny. And what is disappointing is that when he was in opposition, our current president promised that he would repeal that law. I'm not the one saying it. You can look through the footage. He said he would do it. And then recently, Honorable Sami Jamfi said that when Parliament resumed, they would immediately revoke LI 24. He said he had spoken to the Attorney General. It's not me saying it. The footage is there. So immediately Parliament resumed. Why did they not? There was a tax they decided to pass. They were able to do that. So there's a reluctance to repeal.
I don't think they're prioritizing it.
Well, it's not. They don't want to do it. And what's strange is that even the Akufo-Addo administration, under whose watch this very bad piece of legislation was by, even they were putting forward a revocation, not an amendment. And what I find disappointing is that when they first did it, it's an amendment. And the impression a lot of the media houses got was that it was being repealed.
Yeah, no.
I actually got a call from some media houses, oh, you must be happy, LI 2462 has been repealed. When it wasn't being repealed, it was being amended. So I think that in a sense, it's showing a little bit of bad faith. I mean, when you're in a position and you say you do certain things, and you have an overwhelming majority, and you are not doing it, one begins to wonder that what is it that is stopping you from doing it? And I want to say this and say it again. We face an existential threat. Ghana is on the verge of an ecological catastrophe. And Ghanaians are just not angry enough.
Well, we were angry before election 2024. We poured out onto the streets. People were arrested for Stop Galamsey now.
Yes.
It's as if everyone has gone to bed now.
It seems so. And I mean, if we think that merely because we've changed the faces of who is in power, things have changed, nothing has changed.
Nothing?
Well, what I would say is that...
the water not getting clearer?
Well, you show me the water is getting clear. What I would say is that the Lands Minister has done a lot of good work. I don't want to be ungracious and say he's not doing anything. Of course, a lot of work is being done. There's no doubt about it. The current IGP is doing fantastic work. So we're not saying no work is being done, but if you look at the magnitude of the problem, look at what happened to Honorable Anabisi when she tried to arrest some illegal. It could have easily turned a different way. So what we are saying is that because of the situation, declare a state of emergency, a targeted state of emergency. Go to the forest reserves, the water bodies. They have the chanfans, they're poisoning the water. Remove them, remove the equipment. And then, you know, go, it's a targeted, it's not a shoot and kill. We're not a democracy, we're not in the jungle. So I don't know why there's a reluctance to do that. So none of our demands have been met. None, not one. You have not declared a state of emergency. You have, contrary to what we promised, you have not repealed LI 2462. And the revocation matures today. You have not paused community mining. And we've also said that all those named in Professor Frimpong Boateng's report should be investigated and, if need be, prosecuted. And if found guilty, their property should be sold and used towards the cost of reclamation, using the polluter pays principle. If you realize that if you engage in illegal mining and you're prosecuted and found guilty, your ill-gotten wealth will be taken away, I think you think twice. And let me just say very quickly that I prefer the word illegal mining to galamsey. You know, galamsey started as come and gather. They were using hand tools. It's been going on from time immemorial. We're using hand tools. I didn't know that. But right now when we say, so that is why, for example, I don't speak Amga, I don't really speak Twi, but I did have a clip by the Vice President translated when she said they were not going to stop galamsey. They were going to sort of teach them to mine responsibly. Yes. But if it was illegal mining, you can't say I'm not going to stop illegal mining, because the word illegal means it's criminal. And you cannot, as a responsible person, say you're not going to stop criminal conduct or criminal activity. So I prefer illegal mining, that we all throw it where it is. It's an illegal activity. Okay. Yes.
As we speak, where do you think this administration can start to regain the trust that they are losing in us? Because you just expatiated on how everything that they really said they would do, they haven't. Where do we start from? You said that amendments matures today. So where do we go next? What do we do?
If the government wants to repeal it, it can do so. They have almost a 2/3 majority.
But what would it take? Should we mount pressure on them? Should we pour out back in the streets?
I think we need to let the government know that we care about our future and the future of our children, and to reiterate that we face an existential threat. The forest reserves are still, you know, the environmental terrorists are still there. Our water, and let me be quite clear, you know, we look at the Belakwa water. Belakwa, I know they do the reverse, or I believe they do the reverse osmosis, which will remove the toxin. But Ghana water doesn't remove.
No, they don't.
Yes. So when you are drinking water, even if it looks clear, mercury doesn't have a color. Cyanide doesn't have a color. When the water is brown, we can all say, wow, this is brown, I'm not going to drink it. So when you have your sachet water, I don't think you are safe. So because water is life, we'll all die without water. Ghanaians need to be angry enough, go into the streets and say, with the greatest respect, you cannot poison me. I will not sit idly by and be poisoned. But we've all sort of just sat there. When you're eating, for instance, you're having cassava or yam or plantain. Do you know where it's coming from? Recently, I went to the launch of I've forgotten the name of the book, but one of the speakers there was a Burma camp, by Colonel Nimako. He wrote this book. I've forgotten the name. It will come to me. But one of the speakers was saying that recently some yams and plantains were taken to the US and they were found to contain mercury. So we don't think that, oh, this problem is only for those like that, so I don't care. Because we know that in those areas there's a rise in kidney disease, maternal deaths, deformed babies, and we think it's just them, so we don't care. And that's quite selfish, because when we are Christians, what is your brother's problem is your problem as well, so we should care. Now, the point I'm making is that when you are eating fish, you know where the fish came from. You have your contumely, you know where it's coming from. So we should all be concerned.
Yeah, okay. Because the danger is not over. Talking about those who are found culpable facing justice, there was a recent controversial issue on the approach to picking up Wontumi, who we know, or we've watched documentary, even the Ministry of Lands has come out to say that they found his company, what's it called? What's the name? It will come to me. The name of Chairman Wontumi.
Akonta
Mining, yes, and so many of those people. But it appears the opposition was unhappy with the way the Attorney General and the Office of the Special Prosecutor was going about picking up or bringing these people to answer for the things that they have done. What do you say about that? Is the approach subservient to the gravity of the crime that, well, at this point, alleged crime that we think that they've committed?
You see, with Akonta Mining, it's been going on for a very long time. If you remember, even the Catholic Bishops' Conference had asked the then president that what is it with Akonta Mining? And our president said, oh, at this present time, they are not engaged in illegal mining. When we knew that they had allegedly destroyed parts of the Tano Nimiri Forest Reserve. And you know, Akonta Mining has, I think, Media Coalition Against Galamsey and lawyer Martin Pegbu had gone to the police to make a complaint. They couldn't get the docket. I mean, all sorts of things were happening. So it appeared that because they are alleged to finance the NPP, because of that, they were being allowed to destroy our environment with impunity. So one was, in fact, we, eco-conscious citizens, did take a court action against Akonta Mining because we felt that we could not allow this to continue.
Is that still
We didn't get very far. Okay. We didn't get, you know, the court system is not, it can sometimes be slow. So the point being made is that for me, if Akonta Mining is going to face accountability for what it's done, it can only be a good thing. And it shows that if we think that today we have the ear of the government, so we can do what we like, you would answer one day. Because even with this current government, we've been told about MPs, DCEs, high flyers who are involved in illegal mining. We have been given names. Okay. And so it means that in some sense, it looks like it's been musical chairs.
You said the court sometimes is slow. Others have said that let's set up special courts to fast-track issues of galamsey so that we can actually begin to see some sanity, some scapegoats here and there. Do you subscribe to that?
I think it's a very good thing. If you are thinking of 24-hour economy, why can't we have the... Because you see, the courts can be... And of course, the nature of justice is not something that it's a kangaroo court that you go there. You would need to make sure, especially in criminal cases, you know, we have the... that a man is innocent until proven guilty. And so you don't want to incarcerate a person for something he didn't do.
Yeah.
And so, you know, justice in itself, it's not the fastest of things. And then when you are in a country like this where sometimes there are adjournments upon adjournments. I mean, one of the first cases I did when I was called to the bar was a land case.
Okay.
It was my senior's case, Mr. Matthew Fiu, and he asked me to do it. And I think the case took about over 7 years. Over 7 years. I think went through 3 different judges. We won the case, but I'm just saying that it took 7 years.
That's
but of course, land cases take a long time. Criminal cases don't normally take so long. So yes, I think there should be special courts that should deal with these environmental terrorists or those alleged to have committed environmental terrorism. We should have special courts.
Linked to that, let's look at the judicial system right now. During the vetting, one of the judges, I think Philip Mensah, Justice Philip Mensah, said that for us to be able to clear all the cases or the complexities and workload, volume of work that the Supreme Court handles, we need at least 20 judges at the Supreme Court. The issue about the number of judges we can have at the Supreme Court has been very controversial. It's not coming up now. And I think this has reignited the conversation again. From your legal background and experience, do you think we need more numbers, more judges in the court, or we need automation and we need modern and, you know, a better system of doing things so we don't necessarily have to be in person to go and do some things? There are issues about not enough bailiffs, issues about, you know, record tracking, so many issues, you know. Do we need more judges, you think?
Well, I mean, you could, I don't know about more Supreme Court judges because you see, you only get to the, unless it's a case where the Supreme Court has original jurisdiction, for example, interpreting the Constitution. Most cases, you go up. If you start with the High Court, you are dissatisfied, you appeal. you go to the Court of Appeal. You're not happy, you go to the Supreme Court. So you need more judges at the lower courts. So if we are saying that because we're going to set up, let's say, 24-hour court, we need more high court judges, one would understand that. But having said that, you're 100% right that there are lots of things we can do to make the court system faster than it is. And things are being done now. When I started practicing, the judge would be writing everything longhand. I remember Justice Brobby, one of my favorite judges. He was one of, I believe, the first people who had a recording system in his court. Right now, most of the courts have it. So things are going more swiftly. Because you see, when you've got judgment and you want to record the judgment, you now have to go and have the whole thing typed. And if everybody's writing, you know, it takes a long time. But if as and when you go, everything's being recorded, it makes things easier. So there's a lot we can do to make the administration of justice swifter than it is. I mean, when I was in the UK, I went to court, I think on 2 occasions. And we dealt with it very, very swiftly. Okay. You know, but yes, sometimes if you are lucky at the magistrate's court, you can deal with things very swiftly.
So we don't really need too many judges.
You see, sometimes also I think some of our judges have to be a little bit more forceful. I mean, you have some lawyers who just get cases adjourned for no reason, and some of the judges entertain it. One day he's got a toothache, the next minute he's going to a funeral. It's not entertained in serious jurisdictions, you know. I remember, to digress a bit, I was doing a case for a relative of mine. Somebody was in her house, she wanted him out. I was doing it for her free. And I told her that, look, I'll see if we can get an out-of-court settlement. So when we filed the documents in court, the other lawyer came and said, look, can we settle? And I told her, look, let's see if we can settle. And she wasn't happy. Or her friend was also taking the person to court. Is it that I don't want to fight? I said, it's not that I don't want to fight, but a good lawyer will try and keep you out of court, because that's not a place you want to spend your time. Today is adjourned, tomorrow this. So reluctantly she agreed, and we had an out-of-court settlement. So you agree, and then the lawyers and the plaintiff and defendant stand. Then you go and you announce it, and the court adopts it as a judgment. He said he wanted 1 year to move, and I said, look, if we go to court, we've been in court for at least 3 years, so let's take it. So we signed for 1 year. I think 6 months down the line, he came to see me that could he have an additional 3 months, and I said, you know, after waiting 1 year, 3 months is nothing. So she agreed. She only realized what I'd done for her when she got the keys to the property. Her friend was still fighting in court. And it took her, I think, almost about 5 years to get her property. And she got it in about 1 year and 3 months. So courts is, to me, because the judges sometimes entertain very flimsy excuses. I mean, if you have agreed that a case is coming on a particular day, then you have to get somebody to hold your brief. You can't adjourn a case because you've developed a toothache, you got a funeral, you're going to watch the Olympics. I mean, all sorts of frivolous excuses.
Tied to everything, every issue that we are discussing, I believe, is education. It's the backbone of who we are as a country. Often you hear that we encourage rote learning, and because of the way we are churning out graduates from all levels of education, they're unable to think for themselves and ascertain whether their actions contribute to a bigger national issue, whether it's a crisis, positive or negative. Would you say that the education system here in Ghana is adequate enough to train a all-rounded, patriotic citizen who understands that I shouldn't be mining here because it's not just about me? The whole country will depend on this small space, this water, the river that I'm destroying. Do you think that an education system needs a proper overhaul? Also because you can compare. You have had the opportunity to get education outside the country, in Switzerland, you said. So what do you say to that?
Well, I would say that the education I had at Achimota was second to none. It was excellent. And I think that our problem, for me, yes, there are some things we can change in our educational system. I think the crux of the matter in Ghana is a lack of enforcement. And I'll say that for me, enforcement is the best form of education. You've been told not to park your car somewhere. You park it there and you are clamped. Nobody will tell you that don't go and park it there again. You know,
but you see, even if when they are clamped, they just pay some money to those guys.
Yeah, so that's of course, that's the corruption we have. But I'm saying most times the problem with Ghana is lack of enforcement. You know, the rules are like decoration and people just don't abide by them and nothing happens. For example, you know that you are not supposed to make noise after a particular time. You know it. You just make noise all the same. And when you go to the authorities, whether it's the EPA, whether it's the local authority, whether it's the police, all three have a mandate when it comes to noise pollution. They do absolutely nothing. Recently, we found people building on Ramsar sites. Close to here is the Peshi Lagoon, a lagoon. My mom tells me that in her time, the lagoon had, you know, tilapia. It was nice and clear. Now people have gone to fill the lagoon and they are building there. Do the authorities not know? We went there a year ago. You could see stop work. And stop work means just carry on because they go to sleep. So it's a lack of enforcement to me that is the main problem. And that's why we find ourselves where we are.
Where do we start to fix that? Because we have beautiful laws all over the place, beautiful laws, but nothing happens. So what do you think? Where do we start to enforce the enforcement?
You see, the 1,000-mile journey begins with just one step. So for example, when you're doing the resetting would mean that everybody should do their job. So for example, if you find a building on a waterway, you need to go to the assembly. Who gave them the permit? Okay, he built without a permit. But you're supposed to be monitoring, you're supposed to be going on field work. Somebody will be held accountable. When it happens often enough and you know that you could lose your job, if something happens under your watch and you don't do anything about it, trust me, things will change. I mean, look at the court system. I mean, I remember talking to some of the bailiffs who were there in some of the older bailiffs. Things used to function. It's the same Ghanaians, but because there was enforcement, you knew that if you stepped out of, you know, something would happen. And I'll just share this story. When I first started practicing and I went to court, you know, the court clerk is supposed to call your case. So I was finding out from him whether my file was there because our case had been listed. And actually told me that unless I gave him something, he wasn't going to do it. And I said, you jolly well will. So I went and reported him. I went and to the Judicial Secretary, reported him. The Judicial Secretary at the time called him. And to be fair, nothing much happened to him. But because I reported him, never did it to me again. If I tried to become my friend, so he never did it to me again. But he did it to others. And I tried to solve the problem by making a complaint. But he wasn't disciplined. He was also just decided that as for this woman,
do we have a leadership problem rather than enforcement problem?
I think we have both. We have both leadership and enforcement, but it's both. Because as you said, we have the beautiful laws, but we do not enforce them. And that is why we are in the situation in which we are. And that's why I would say illegal mining. But I'll even say that, you see, our problem is deeper than illegal mining. It's irresponsible mining. So for example, Professor Frimpong Boateng in his report said, I have a mining license. But if I go outside the parameters of my license, I'm involved in what? Illegal mining. And you know, it's like a driving license. The fact that you have a driving license doesn't mean you are driving responsibly. So what we are really against is the irresponsible mining. So you could actually have somebody who doesn't have a driving license, who drives more carefully than somebody with a driving license. So this new thing about we're going to license them, to me, it misses the point. It's not a question of licensing people. It's a question of, do you have the resources to go and actually monitor, to find out that, for example, you know, when you've got a mining license, you don't just start mining. You're supposed to have a digging license. And then you also have these tailings where you would put the water, you know, that you've used to wash the gold before you release it. You keep it for some time. So if you don't, so it's a lot of money to get these tailings that can hold a lot of water. A lot of them just put it back into the water. Who is monitoring? So it's not a question of licensing. It's a question of monitoring and enforcing. People don't do the right thing, revoke their licenses. We're not prepared to do that.
Recently, we hear that they're decentralizing our local governments. So the district level, like MMDCEs and the rest, have a larger part of the district assembly common fund. They have more power to actually embark on development work and projects in their communities. And parliamentarians have been given the role of monitoring and evaluating, these the works that these MMDCEs do. Galamsey happens in communities, in districts, in metropolitan municipal assemblies. Do you think this is any solution at all to that problem?
Illegal mining will never take place once the chief, the police and the political authority, MC, DC, decide it's not going to happen. It doesn't happen. I remember being at events with, I think, Honorable Apia Kubi. He was saying there was no illegal mining in his area because the police himself and the chiefs had said no illegal mining. You look at
So
a
it's
place,
the chiefs.
yeah, you look at a place like Gemma in the northwest region, where the chief has said not under my watch. And there's this great activist, Father JB, Father Blay. He was in Rome. He's a Catholic friar, and he and the community plus the chief have said no illegal mining. So you find illegal mining in the towns before, after, but there's no illegal mining there. The point being made is that if they come together, the chiefs, the police, and the political authority, no illegal mining, it will not take place. Or it will take place, but you can do something about it. But a lot of the time, there's complicity. You know, that is why it was said that we're going to remove a lot of the police command. And then what should have happened is that when, I'm not sure how far they've gone with that. But if they do that, what should happen is that when there's illegal mining, then you should hold the command accountable. What did you do about it? Did you ask for the security coordinating council? What are you doing about it? So all these can be stopped, but you need the cooperation of the chiefs. You need the political authority. You need the police.
Do we have the political will? That's my last question on galamsey. Because it kept coming up last year. Political will. Do we have it now? Are we even beginning to see the demonstration of some political will now?
You see, I would say the facts speak for themselves. You know, in every situation, I mean, what is visible on the ground is what is coming. The perception is that it's been musical chairs. Because even the low-hanging fruit, like LI 2462.
We couldn't get it right.
Rather, some people say that, in a sense, I don't want to say we're deceived, but what was put before Parliament was an amendment contrary to what were promised. So I would say that this regime has an overwhelming majority. And I know people who were NPP members, but who were so annoyed at what was going on that they didn't actually vote for the current administration, but they voted against the past administration. They wanted somebody who would beat them. So what I'm saying that if you don't want the overwhelming majority or goodwill to be dissipated, you need to let people know that you are actually, look at the demands that were made. State of emergency, has that happened?
Yeah.
Pausing community mining, has that happened?
Yeah.
Revoking LI 2462, has that happened? And I think we're going to start thinking about 24 hour more courts to deal with it. But a lot of what we asked for in the run-up to the elections, I'm not quite sure it has happened. And I'm reliably informed that we can stop galamsey and, if I say illegal mining, in a very short time. Once the political will is there, there's a state of emergency, and we leave the professionals. And we have very well-trained armed forces. We leave them to do their job with no political interference. Once there's no political interference, we give them carte blanche. We will end illegal mining.
What does a typical day in your life look like?
It's very interesting. I could receive complaints about whether illegal mining or noise pollution or a park that is being built on. Recently, I was told about Tamale, that somebody had brought sand and stone to parks and gardens in Tamale. And I have to say that I'm reliably informed that the situation has been resolved. And that goes to the regional minister and to the minister for local government. So thank you very much for that.
Please share a word or two with young women who are probably getting inspired by you, the work that you do. Facing gender discrimination or not, we are women, and there's a general global call for us to be treated the same as men. And so at the end of the show, I like to say the women who are in power have some tidbits for the ones coming. So what would yours be?
I would say that hold your ground, be the best that you can be, because wherever you are as a woman and you portray excellence, you are fighting the fight. And also focus on what you have in your hand. You know, when Moses in the Bible he was saying that, what do I have? He had a rod, and the Lord said, throw it away, throw it on the ground. It became, that was in Exodus, and it became a serpent. Focus on what you have in your hand. Don't look at what somebody else has, because we all have different talents. I mean, I couldn't do what you do because we have different talents. So focus on what you have and be the best that you can be. Being the best that you can be wherever you are is helping other women get there, because people will look at you are doing so well, and it's opening the door for other women. So don't be copycat, do what you can, and you have a right to be where you are. just don't listen to criticism. Once you know you're on the right track, seek out women who you believe have achieved, who can give you advice, encourage you, and hold your ground. Whatever it is you want to do, go for it. God be your helper.
Serwah. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Sparing some time with us on the Women Power Politics show.
Thank you for having me.
So I hope you've been inspired. I hope you've learned a bit about the environment and what it means to us. I hope you've learned a bit about Awula Serwah and who she is, her approach and perception on life. Thank you for watching. I'm Sweety Aborchie. I'll see you again next week.
I congratulate you and commend you on your bold initiative to improve the lives of the women.